welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, February 7th, 2018, better known as Signing Day. I am Dave Biddle, joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, we thought with the early signing period there wouldn't be a lot of drama. Signing Day might be kind of mundane. Not so much. Not with Urban Meyer and his staff in town. It looks like it's going to be a great day for the Buckeyes. We'll get into specifics, but it looks like, just to start with, Nicholas Petit-Frere is trending Ohio State's way. We'll just start with that. Looks like, unless something changed later today, that the number one offensive tackle in the country will pick Ohio State. Just your reaction to that if it happens.
So remember how every time Urban gets a decommitment, it always seems like he goes out and finds a kid who's just as good, if not better? I mean, that has been a long-standing trend in Urban's recruiting at OSU, where, they lose a kid and they just go find somebody a little bit better, right? Well, I know Jackson Carman was never officially committed to Ohio State, right? But if you go out and you get Petit-Frere instead of Jackson Carman, it's like getting an equal, if not better, athlete with way less of the drama, and it fits perfectly into the Urban Meyer thought process of, oh, we're not going to get you? Cool, I'll go get someone better. It's an absolute wonderful end of the season. The delicious tears that are coming out of Ann Arbor are just so yummy right now. And if he does, in fact, sign with the Buckeyes, you couldn't have asked for more of a godsend at a position of need than the number one player at the position in need. So, yeah, that's a gigantic win for Ohio State for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because, he could have, picked anywhere in the country. And Ohio State, for a while, I know, reading some of the other boards that are, as you mentioned, are very salty. A lot of people thought, looking back at like a year ago, for example, at this time, looking at his recruitment, thought it would be Alabama and Florida from the south of the two main, and then Michigan and Notre Dame from the north, and then Ohio State swoops in. And, it'd be one thing, we'll get to Rasheed Walker in a minute. It'd be one thing to get like a four-star offensive tackle in this class this late when that's the one need. It's just shocking to me, and it even shouldn't be because of Urban Meyer and what he's been able to do on the recruiting trail. But that's the biggest need, and then even with the early signing period, they go out and just, get the number one offensive tackle recruit in the country, top 10 player overall, 5-star. It shouldn't shock me, but, in some ways it does.
This is the guy who in the first 2 months on the job had a commitment every single day in the week. Do you remember that? So, we shouldn't be surprised when Urban Meyer does stuff like this. For all the complaints we've had about him just leaning on the quarterback run or whatever X's and O's things in games, for the love of God, there's not a better recruiter out there in the country. The guy is just absolutely amazing when it comes to it. And, again, you're getting, by all indications, the number one player in the country at the biggest position of need. Also, it's the position that you lost the number one player in your own state. So you're just going out and getting the number one player from another state and the entire country at the position instead. It sort of closes the Jackson Carman book really well. And honestly, you mentioned Rasheed Walker. I think he's probably going to trend towards Penn State with the Petit-Frere commitment. This is kind of how these things work out. You don't get both very rarely, right? But, oh my goodness, it's an unbelievable end to the recruiting class. And I'm not convinced he's the only new guy who's going to sign with Ohio State that we don't already know about. That doesn't, of course, include the guys like Tyler Friday who are also going to be signing.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rasheed Walker. We'll see what happens. He's going to announce later today, and, I think if I had to pick, obviously it'd be Penn State at this point, but I'm told don't rule out Ohio State. I know he's been torn, and, you never know. This is not, I wouldn't call this like a shot in the dark. I do think he'll pick Penn State, but I don't know if Petit-Frere, assuming he will be a Buckeye later today, I don't know if Petit-Frere being a Buckeye really affects Walker or not. And if it would, I wouldn't, I won't say I would think less of Walker, but I imagine that wouldn't affect it. But I am told that Walker is still in play later today. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think he's 60-40 towards Penn State. That's one where I'd bet against OSU right now. But again, what do we just say? Never bet against Urban Meyer. And, I think, I don't say it because I think it affects Walker's decision that Petit-Frere appears to be a Buckeye. He doesn't know one way or the other, right? I just think that's usually how these things work out. If your goal is to get one guy for the position and you're going after two big-time guys, you don't usually get both. It's almost greedy to think you're going to get both. If Ohio State gets both, Dwayne Long is going to be running naked through the streets across the state of Ohio for like a good couple days. It's just if you get both those guys with the way that Ohio State needed help at the offensive tackle position, you couldn't have asked for a better finish. I don't know if there's two higher-rated offensive tackles that are unsigned after the start of the signing period, to be real honest. So, it tells you how well Ohio State does. And, by the way, how demoralizing is it for other places where Ohio State can kind of just swoop in on the remaining kids down the stretch and go, hey, you should really consider us. And those kids essentially, drop what they're doing with most of these other schools and come to Columbus. I mean, that's just, it tells you what level Ohio State's recruiting at right now. It's such a rare air. I mean, don't take this for granted, folks, because someday we're not going to have Urban in charge of the program, and these kids aren't going to be ending up at Ohio State late in the process like they have been. I mean, this was not something we did under Tressel. We got the signing day and just, anybody who had an Ohio State hat on the table never put it on, right? Now we're on the point where we're almost assuming it's going to go on their head. What a change.
Javontae Jean-Baptiste, for a while, looked like he was going to be a Buckeye. Then, a week ago, even less looked like he was not going to be a Buckeye, no chance. And now from everything that we're hearing, it'll be a surprise if he does not commit to Ohio State later today. It looks like he will be a Buckeye. Let's say that does happen. I mean, a high 4-star defensive end. Just your thoughts on that, Bax.
I don't know if we've ever had a more French signing day. Monsieur Jean-Baptiste and Monsieur Petit-Frere. I'm surprised, I think, a little bit that it's come back to him coming to OSU. Not because I don't think he's a good prospect, but after his Nebraska visit, I really thought that's where he was going to end up. I thought the Scott Frost effect might be in a little bit of play at that point, but it's just another guy that he's the kind of guy who, if you look at most of the Big Ten's current recruiting class, Jean-Baptiste would be one of the top guys, right? I mean, he'd be a top 5 guy in most schools, right? That school up north would be killing to have a guy like him in their recruiting class. And we're like, okay, cool, sure, throw him in. It's fine. I mean, that's the truth when you look at how ridiculous this class is. And if you get both the members of the French connection today, then you're going to end up with an OSU class that Georgia's going to have to pull a real rabbit out of their hat or a real Reese out of the Michigan class to be able to pass us for number 1. That's simple.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention there's kind of a big basketball game tonight. Buckeyes at Purdue Boilermakers, 14 Buckeyes, number 3 Boilermakers. The computers, at least ESPN's analytics, not giving the Buckeyes much of a chance. They're giving the Buckeyes win probability of 11.9%. Purdue, 88.1% win probability. I'll never rule Chris Holtmann out and what he's been able to do in K Debates D up in this group. But shorthanded later tonight, no Cam Williams. Game will tip at probably just past 8:30 p.m. in West Lafayette. Big Ten Network getting this game. That's a nice coup for Big Ten Network to have this game. It's not on ESPN or Fox or anything. Big Ten Network, 8:30 tonight. Ohio State at Purdue. Just your thoughts on this game, Bax.
Well, good for the Big Ten Network, but back in September, did any of us think that Ohio State at Purdue on a Wednesday night was going to be a game that anybody was going to really be paying attention to outside of Ohio State and Purdue fans? So, I think that kind of explains the TV decision. But let's put it this way with Chris Holtmann's team this year. It's amazing where they're at. They're 20-5 or whatever it is at this point. They're a lock to the NCAA tournament. They're a contender for the Big Ten. If they go on the road and beat Purdue, we go from talking about this team being an amazing surprise and a great success story to, dude, do we just start talking about this team as being a national championship contender? Like, I'm not there yet. The team still seems too shallow in terms of depth and too reliant on 1 or 2 big players. And honestly, it's felt like an unbelievable high wire act up to this point. You go and you win at Purdue, then we start talking about how good this team really can be. Because that's a darn good Purdue team. By my estimation, that's the best basketball team in the Big Ten. No disrespect to my Buckeyes. I certainly hope the Buckeyes win before anybody takes that the wrong way. But truth of the matter is, you talk about going on the road to the best team in the league, a top 5 team in the country, without one of your starters playing on a team that doesn't have a deep rotation anyways. If Holtmann pulls this one off, I've run out of superlatives. Let's put it that way. Because if you go and you're Ohio State and you go on the road and you beat Purdue and you're tied with the tiebreaker for the lead in the Big Ten race, you have to start talking about them as a national championship contender. And that seems ludicrous to say, coming from where this team was 8 months ago or wherever it was, 7 months ago, right? I mean, I can't even put it into words properly how ridiculous it seems to say that. But that's for the reality if Ohio State wins this game. And hey, if they go there and they win they lose a tough one and, Purdue has to fight for it. Well, that's kind of what I expect. I expect this to be one where Purdue pulls away a little bit down the stretch, kind of wears the Buckeyes down, gets a little bit of home advantage because that's how it works in basketball. And we say, hey, the Buckeyes put a great effort in. Look, Purdue's a great team. But maybe the Buckeyes can keep pace in the Big Ten chase here, right? If they go there and win, then we have to look at this team entirely differently. We have to look at this team as kind of like we did at the Oden team in 06, which is they're surrounded with a dominant player who can carry them to a win at any point in time. Because if they win tomorrow, you know who's going to have a giant game, right? That's Ohio State's candidate to be the National Player of the Year. So this is going to be a fascinating game, but it's a no-lose game for Ohio State. This whole season's a no-lose season for OSU at this point, right? Everything is house money. They're a tournament team already. They look like the program is on unreal solid footing. You go to West Lafayette and beat Purdue, it's a whole different ball game, and I'm fascinated to see what happens.
Great stuff from the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Happy signing day, everybody. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.